Okay, my name is Spencer Jackman, and this is my Comms 302 popular culture analysis video for the text I've been working on throughout the term. Typically, you would see a camera in the bottom right corner, but I've tried recording this multiple times, and I've encountered several technical difficulties with that. So I'm going to try this with just a microphone and no camera and hope that works. So here we go. So when I was trying to pick a movie that I would be interested in analyzing, there were a couple cultural questions I was thinking about. One was how many mainstream popular movies contain adequate representation of diverse cultures. And so I know that I knew that I was going to do something in the MCU because near the beginning of the term, Avengers Endgame had just come out, and so the MCU was very popular for a lot of people at that time when I was picking this. And so I knew I was going to do something from the MCU. And then I started thinking about the cultural diversity because that's something I'm always just interested in and a big advocate for is diversity and being inclusive of all people. And so as I thought about the MCU and the cultural diversity that is shown through it, I noticed that there are zero culturally diverse heroes who are the main characters that the movie is actually focusing on. So, for example, Iron Man has his best friend in the army whose name is Rhodey. So Rhodey is black, and he became Iron Patriot slash War Machine, actually. So he was black, but he wasn't really focused on that much. He was just kind of a side character, playing the best friend of Tony Stark. But the movie was focusing on Stark and Iron Man. And then Captain America had Falcon, who was black, but again, the movie didn't really focus on him too much. It was just focusing on the title character, which is Captain America. Now, Rhodey and Falcon do show up in other MCU movies, such as Civil War, Winter Soldier, Infinity War, and I believe they showed up in Endgame. I think I actually fairly certain they did. Anyways, and then another cultural question I was thinking about was how many popular heroes are there that aren't white? And so, as we said, there was really Falcon and Rhodey, and they're fairly popular, but they're not as popular as the other heroes who are really common, like Thor, Captain America, Hulk, and all those people. But so there aren't really many that aren't white. I mean but there are some like Wong from Doctor Strange and the other character who had like the bouncing boot things and a funky looking staff. And then another cultural question I was thinking about was why was Black Panther such a successful movie when compared to the other MCU movies? And then that's a question that I'm gonna answer and give my opinion on when we get to the conclusion. So my justification for picking Black Panther is because it's the only movie in the MCU to have a nearly all black cast. I mean, there are some white characters like Agent Ross, Ulysses Claw, but for the most part, it's basically a completely black cast. It's also the first superhero movie that I've seen where the main character is black. I know that there was one Marvel series where the hero was black. I think it was like Luke Cage or something. I don't know. I haven't seen that, but I'm pretty sure Luke Cage is a superhero series where the hero is black. And then my final justification is that it shows a very different culture when compared to the other heroes of the MCU, which are primarily American. So we see like Iron Man, Captain America, they're all American. They're all American heroes, but Black Panther or T'Challa, he's coming from an African nation of Wakanda, which is a very different culture. They're not American; they're more technologically advanced. It's just it's a really very different side of the coin that the MCU have finally decided to show. So the method that I am using for analyzing Black Panther was semiotics. Semiotics is the study of signs and symbols, and usually they come in pairs and groups. And so pair that I'm focusing on is, well, actually, I guess we'll wait till we get there. So to start off, there's the Black Panther. Okay, it's the name of the movie. And it's the and T'Challa is the Black Panther. And so Black Panther is, of course, an animal with the characteristics of primarily being strong, powerful, and very protective. And there's also some cultures or religions or other things kind of do like this totem thing, where like if you're born under this, you'll have such and such characteristics, something like that. I didn't really have time to study as much on that. But anyways, the Black Panther as a totem represents physical and mental strength. Physically, of course, the heart-shaped herb gives the Black Panther increased strength, speed, that sort of thing. And then mentally, the heart-shaped herb gives the person increased instinct, which honestly I think instinct is mental, so I'm going to go along with that and just call that power mental. And then I mentioned the heart-shaped herb. So I thought that was a really interesting concept. The fact that it's shaped like a heart represents love, unity, and reflection. When T'Challa goes into the ancestral realm, he gets to talk with his recently deceased father, who obviously he was very close with. He's also T'Challa also takes the time to reflect about his really ability and comfort level about being king, and he gets to ask his father, like, how do I do this? How do I become king and be a good king and make sure everything works out well? And in the heart-shaped herb, we also see it's a kind of a bright, glowing purple, and purple is typically the associated and symbolizes the color of power. Some religions, like in the New Testament, like Pharisees and Sadducees, they all had purple robes, I think. I'm fairly certain, but purple is usually associated with power. And then, in order for the heart-shaped herb to take effect, you had to be buried, and that you had to be completely buried, and then you would rise from being buried after returning from the ancestral realm, which I think was really interesting. The burial and rising again kind of represents being reborn. When they bury you as a normal kind of just normal citizen, normal person, but when you come out and are risen, you're reborn as a different person, or in this case, the Black Panther. You're reborn with the increased abilities that the heart-shaped herb gives you. So, as I mentioned earlier, or was going to mention earlier, the main signs and symbols that I saw throughout this movie, they came in colors. I noticed that all the characters had certain colors that they were always wearing with little deviation. And so for T'Challa, the colors were black and silver. Black, of course, represents power, authority, strength, and sophistication, which are characteristics that you'll have as king. You have the authority, you're the highest level up. Also, being king, you have the power to do basically whatever you want. And then you also have to be kind of being royal. There's kind of an expectation that you're going to be sophisticated. And then silver also represents sophistication and wealth, which you're going to have. I mean, as a king of an entire nation, you're going to have many assets that you can use, and you have all this wealth that you can use. So, continuing with silver, we see vibranium, which is an important part of Black Panther. Much of the solid vibranium that we see is silver, which, like I said, it represents the sophistication and wealth, but it also represents industrialness, high tech, craftsmanship, technology, which are all things that we see being done with vibranium. It's very high tech, bulletproof. I mean, it's the strongest substance on Earth. Fictional, of course, but I mean that's beside the point. Craftsmanship, we see Shuri being very crafty with the different things and advancing the technology that vibranium is being used for. Orange and red is another popular color that we see primarily with Okoye and the army. Orange usually represents being a risk taker, being courageous, being determined, whereas red also represents violence, leadership, courage, action, which are all characteristics that you would expect to see in a soldier who is in an army. You expect to see all these things. You can't be a coward and be in the army. You have to be confident. You have to be determined. You have to take leadership and take action and just kind of have all these characteristics that orange and red represent. Another color that we see very often is Wakabi, and he's usually wearing blue, which symbolize trust, loyalty, friendliness, and steadfastness. And we see all of these in Wakabi. He's a very trusting person. We see that he trusts T'Challa to bring down Claw even after T'Challa's father, T'Chaka, couldn't. Wakabi trusts that T'Challa will be able to. He's also very loyal to T'Challa, as he's from what the movie makes it out to be. He seems like they are best friends, and so Wakabi is very loyal to T'Challa. But then, after T'Challa is presumed dead after the ritual combat with Eric Killmonger, Wakabi becomes loyal to Killmonger, who is now the king, and he does whatever he asks. Something I noticed while researching the colors is that orange and blue are considered to be complementary colors, which with orange being Okoye's color and blue being Wakabi. I now see that I misspelled that, so that's my bad. But Okoye is always in orange, Wakabi is always in blue, and because these two colors are complementary, they go well together. They work well, and we see that Wakabi and Okoye are together in the movie. I mean, it's not really focused on. It's not the main plot of the movie. It's just kind of subtext. But we see that they are together, and it's briefly mentioned. And so I thought that was really interesting and a nice use of the symbolism of the colors orange and blue. Another color that we see is with Nakia. She's always wearing green, which tends to represent peace. We see that she's a spy for her country, for Wakanda. She starts on a mission in the beginning of the movie, but we don't really see or learn more about what that mission is. But in a conversation she has with T'Challa, she's talking about doing refugee programs and foreign aid, which are all very peace-based events or things that you would do. So another thing that we see aside from Black Panther and everyone over there is in the isolated tribe of the Jabari. So the Jabari, just like the Black Panther have a Black Panther kind of statue thing, the Jabari's animal is the gorilla, which tends to represent strength. But the main thing I want to focus on here is the word and name Jabari. I thought it was really interesting. I wanted to look it up because it's a fun word, and so I wanted to learn more about it. And after researching it, I found that Jabari actually comes from a Swahili word that means the brave one, which bravery is a very apparent trait that we see in M'Baku, especially when M'Baku comes to save the day in the final fight between T'Challa and Killmonger, and when they all start fighting each other, M'Baku comes and is very brave and comes to save the day. Okay, so in conclusion, I used the semiotics method and I focused on the main colors that each of the characters use that represent their individual personalities. But going back to the cultural questions I asked, one of my questions was, why was Black Panther so successful? And in my opinion, I believe it was because they brought in an African nation and an entirely different culture and explored their culture and showed us what it was about. All the other movies, they focus on all the American heroes, which is what we are, and so we focus on that. But bringing in an entirely different culture, I just thought it was really interesting and really well done. So now there's the really interesting after credits scene that I want to show just because I really like it. So we're going to go and watch that right now.
The illusions of the vision threaten our very existence. We all know the truth. More connects us than separates us. But in times of crisis, the wise build bridges, while the foolish build barriers. We must find a way to look after one another, as if we were one single tribe.